Hello, welcome back. I'm going to talk about everything you need to know about pop-ups. This is similar to the lesson that I gave at PJX show. A number of people have then asked me to share my notes and my slides. So I figured it's probably better if I film this and share with you. So aside from what was discussed at the PJX, the Permanent Jewellery Expo, I am going to go slightly off script and add a little bit extra. So let's start. In this session, we're going to talk about the different types of pop-ups. And then for each one, we're going to discuss the pros and cons and how to negotiate rent and profit, which is really important. The types of overhead that we should keep in mind for each one of those, and the necessary equipment, and how to travel light, which is essential for pop-ups. The other thing is marketing strategy and how you want to increase your bookings. This is really important because that for pop-ups, it's quite different from if you have an established location. And as well, you want to how to increase the sense of urgency so that you're there and you want to maximize your sales and close the deal. So that is really important to discuss. And the other thing is how to grow your future audience, your clientele list, and get booked for more gigs as well as following. Okay, here we go. The main kinds of pop-ups, there are three main kinds. And I'm going to talk about each separately, but it doesn't necessarily have to be within the three. These are main categories. First off is the one that is within an existing brick and mortar boutique, store, salon. So it's got a location, a set location that is permanent, and you're inside that location to do the pop-up. The second kind is a craft market or show. So you have the farmer's market, your artisan market, one-of-a-kind show, which I think is in North America. So these are set temporary shows, and it could be on a regular basis. Then the last kind, and I'm going to talk more detail for each one of those, is the non-designated show that doesn't have an organizer. It's a bit tricky, but I'll explain why. Okay, so let's first talk about existing brick and mortar retail location. It has an established, so examples of this would be an established boutique, clothing boutique, gift store, a salon, a spa. So there is a set location. Very importantly to know about this is that they actually really want you there. And this is because all those locations have very busy times, such as usually Friday, Saturday, Sunday, very busy seasons, Christmas, Mother's Day, and any other time usually tends to be rather slow, and they want you to be there as another reason to call on their regular customers, bring them in, and then they could have add-on sales. It adds interest and foot traffic for them. And how you reach these people, you just reach out, low-lying fruit. Go to the place, the spa that you normally go to. The friend who has a store, the place that you go to get your clothing, your florist. So just reach out, the ones that you know, and then go further thereafter. So I'm going to talk about possibilities of how it works out, the income split. Oftentimes, there's different ways, 50-50, 40-60, you can do per person. The only thing is, for the income split, be careful of solid gold, because that your cost of goods is a lot higher. So, for example, if you're usually for sterling silver and gold filled, the cost for the bracelet might be $5 for gold filled, for the chain and the jump ring. But you could easily, and the market rate right now is about $70 to $75. So that is 15 times, 10 to 15 times cost. Whereas solid gold, the same bracelet might cost you $100 for solid gold, and you would sell it for $250, or it could cost you $50 and you sell it for $150. So having 50-50 split is not very good. And so while I was at the PJX show, there was, we're talking about how much you pay. And I think I'll actually, I'm going to leave it for a little later for the negotiation. But if there's some people who are right now not paying because they think that you're bringing in a lot of traffic. So it depends on your pull. But we're going to talk about negotiating the rent a little later. So we'll do that. The other thing is, what could be a little bit trickier, because you're in someone else's location, someone else's business, it is really important to have a way of record keeping. For myself, I have done, up until before COVID, so for over 20 years now, I do pop-ups in galleries because I wholesale jewelry under my brand, Dana Henning Jewellery. And so I would do pop-ups at the gallery, Art Gallery of Ontario, and in a few higher end locations, boutiques that carry my line. And so that really does help with promoting my brand. There are customers who would like to meet me because they've been buying my pieces. They've shown a lot of loyalty and they really want to meet me, and helps the boutique and elevate in bringing more traffic, because it's another event, and it elevates their image. So the best way of doing the pop-ups and figuring out record keeping is having booklets that are triplets. So you have duplicates and then triplets, those that you can get at any like Staples or any sort of receipt book that you can purchase online, Amazon. The reason why you want 3 is, on the top copy you should have a stamp made of your company info, how to reach you, phone number, email. The second copy you keep for yourself, and the last copy for the store. It doesn't matter if they're paying the store and then you get a remittance, or you take their payments using Square or PayPal or whatnot, and you want to have a record keeping method, so that you give with your information of the customer, and you give a copy to the store owner. So either way, it's very important to have a set copy, but more so, you want an extra set with your information for the customer. And how you pose that is, if you have any issues, If you want resizing or have any questions, here is my information. And trust me, if you left a card for the customer to take away, they throw away cards. But if you have a receipt, and pose it as a receipt so they can get a hold of you if they have any questions, they want resizing, but really if they want an extra bracelet, or they show their friends and it's like, oh, I got this at whatever, and people want to know who is it? For sure, they're going to keep their receipt, or more likely they would keep their receipt rather than a business card. Have all your contact information there so that you can expand the business. They can contact you. That's how you build a following. So really important to have triplicates. Okay, let's dive in. The pros of a pop-up, in-store pop-up. You have no rental cost, or not really. So you're not paying rent up front. So it's less risky. There's less worry about logistics. And I'm going to go talk about negotiating the rental cost later to compare all of them. So really, there's no rent up front anyway, unless you negotiate for that. You have less worry about logistics. No worries about washroom, electrical outlet for your machines, and chairs, tables, whatnot. Usually they already have something, but less. Then you would have to bring less anyway, even if they don't. Then one that I'm going to discuss a little later on about the farmers markets. Low cost of advertising. We're assuming that the pop-up store, the boutique you're in, they already do their bit of advertising, and they're calling their customers these events. So I'm assuming that you're not going to have to pay for advertising to drive business, because they already have established clientele, and what you have to pay for perhaps is a bit of elbow grease in advertising on your social media. Again, established clientele, and if you are already having a list of different pop-ups and at different locations, so you might want to invest a little bit of advertising, either being on your website, on your Instagram with a list. There is less advertising under these circumstances. Very importantly, you have instant helpers. If you're in a boutique situation, everyone's really glad for you to be there. And when they have their own customers coming in, they not only want to show their appreciation for you in helping out, but they actually want to show and work with their regular customers. It's an exciting event, and you have people who could look out for things while you go to the washroom, bring over lunch, coffee, have someone to cash out and line people up, have the conversations going. So they're great, they're eager, and you don't have to pay them. Unless you actually, it's always good, side note, to bring them treats, give them a free bracelet, talk about things and do that beforehand if you can, because then they can show off their bracelet, help you model, talk about how the process is, and if it's a follow-up pop-up, those are your best models and spokespeople. So it's really important, aside from having the instant helpers, to take care of them. Okay. Now, cons of the pop-up. And I've been there where they don't advertise. usually Mondays through Thursdays, it's pretty dead. And unless, and they're going to want you to be there on those days to bring in customers that they would not otherwise have. It's great to on a Saturday, Sunday, but it's already really busy. So most of the time, that's when they want you there. The problem with that is that unless they advertise, it is the amount of traffic that's going to go through is what their Tuesday traffic or Thursday's traffic is. And I've had a pop-up where that person didn't even call her regular customer list, didn't put any advertising in, and at the end, on a Tuesday, it was, I think there were only 10 people. So anyway, you are dependent on them. But to counter that, side note, is you can suggest, okay, I'm going to be here Tuesday, whatever day. So I just want to clarify, are you going to be calling people? Or is there an email list that you're going to go through? Are you going to set up some drinks, any treats? Are you going to announce something? Let's plan this out so that if it never occurred to them because they're not experienced, let's just say, you're not dependent on that. Always, you're responsible for how well you do. See it that way first and take control. Move that forward and ask them if they are willing to do that. And okay, sometimes and it goes back towards negotiating, which I'm going to talk about. You can't ask for all those things if you're not paying them and you're not bringing them treats and taking care of their staff, etc. So all these things do keep in mind, but you are ultimately responsible for your own success. So don't leave it to them to do the advertising if they're not going to, or at least talk about it so you're not going to be surprised. There is always in a boutique, with very few exceptions, there's usually less foot traffic than a market that is not compared to a festival market, a farmer's market that is a short period of time and it's well advertised. Usually stores have less foot traffic than periodic, well advertised markets. Okay, income split can be very high rent. Going back, I had one pop-up, and it's a 50-50 split at a gallery. And mind you, they had featured a number of artists for the week, and I had the highest grossing sales. It was 5,000 some odd, it's just under 6,000. So 50-50 within the short number of hours that I was there. I wasn't there for the full day. $3,000 rent. Now that's a lot of rent, but it's good. It's good for me. It's good for them. So it sometimes can be very high rent if you're successful, compared to going to a farmer's market or somewhere else that if you're very successful, you keep everything other than the rent. Another con is it's harder to get repeat customers because it's not your location. And you're dependent on the boutique owner to refer more, to ask you back. That becomes difficult. And as I was saying before, with a pop-up, what you should do is let people know they have a receipt, how they can get a hold of you. And if it happens that you already have other, this is your focus, your business of pop-ups is your focus, you should always, if possible, line up other venues, other dates, have them listed somehow, and on your receipts to say, hey, I'm going to be going at this location across town, this whatever, next week, or I'm going to be back here in a month's time. Meanwhile, check it out on my Instagram or wherever, my Facebook page. There's a schedule of my upcoming schedule. If you want another bracelet, if you want to tell your friends, you can also say, within a month, if you want the second bracelet, I can take $10 off. Keep your receipt. Something like that. But it is harder for pop-up because you do not have the location. You don't own it. Okay. This is another type of pop-up, recurring organized events. So that includes farmers market, artisan market, the artists. There are a whole bunch of these out there that they have an organizer. So usually it's branded. For example, there's a Toronto artisan market or handmade, one of a kind is another brand. So these are markets, could be weekend, could be seasonally, twice a year, could be monthly, all sorts of, and these are usually branded with organizer. They advertise and promote. That's what you're paying for. Some of them have a lot, very strong in getting PR. As a result, the pros of a pop-up, market pop-up, is that there is very high foot traffic. So some of these are just once a year, like the Pride Day Parade. I exhibited there when I was in university, and actually paid a lot of these pop-ups weekend. I also did weekend for a number of years, the artist market in Toronto. It was just a parking lot downtown, midtown. And you can make lots of money because of so much traffic, tourist traffic. And it was Saturday and Sunday for the artist market. I don't remember the brand, but it was the Toronto Artist Market, weekend market. And I paid for my university, my undergrad, and my master's degree. I know it's not as expensive for the Canadian tuition as some of the Americans, but it's nothing to sneeze at. And I only did that for the weekends in the summer, from mid-May to end of September, until it started getting too cold. And then I also did the Pride Day Parade a couple of times. So the rent, it was always very high foot traffic. Low. I'm going to talk about rent later. There was low advertising costs. They did all the advertising. And certainly people were ready to spend. The craft market, the weekend artisan market, there were a lot of tourists, many tourists there, but also people who go there. Other people were in that market, some selling flowers, some selling baked goods, selling vases, etc. And so some people would go every weekend to get fresh whatever. And when they're there, they're ready to spend. It offers really, really good income. So I was able to pay for all of my tuition. And let me see. rent Saturday was $65, Sunday was $45 or $40. Mind you, this is 30 years ago. But I was able to clear on average $800 for the weekend. That is almost 8 times rent. That's huge. Income can be very good, but then it varies. I've been to certain markets where it's been terrible. So the other thing is, frequent markets, like every weekend, I was able to get a lot more repeat business because people would say, yeah, actually, I like that. Maybe I've spent my budget. Maybe I'll come back next weekend, or I like this. I'm going to see if, and they come back next weekend to say, hey, my friend really liked that, or etc. So, and frequent markets equals very steady income. The other thing is, very importantly, these weekend markets, you can still do that if you had a boutique. If your boutique is not very busy on the weekends, or you can hire someone, having them do the summer markets or weekend markets actually increases your exposure. And if the market is not close to you, you can drive. If they like the experience, like what you've got to offer, or you let them know that I have much more and I have these things, they like the interaction, you have now created a destination spot from your boutique to drive them over. Increases traffic very nicely. Pop-up market cons, and there are many, and I worked for a number of years. Incidentally, it took me 6 years, 6 years to pay off all of my student debt, which is pretty good because I took 6 years of university. Okay, pop-up market cons. Rent can be rather expensive. Now, my farmer's market, or artisan market, that was low for rent, and there were lots of people on the wait list to get in. But the guy who operated, he was a guy who was low cost, and he became a friend. But a lot of these outfits, that's all they do, it gets expensive. So for instance, at the same time, when I was doing the artist market, which was $105, $110 for the weekend, one day of the Pride Day parade at the same time is $400. So just keep that in mind. It varies, and sometimes it can be very expensive. You need staff. When there's high traffic, there's shrinkage. People are less likely to be patient because they want to go elsewhere. So with these market pop-ups, especially with permanent jewelry where people are trying things on, you need to weld and you look at charms, you need cashing out, you do need staff. And that's harder to come by because and I find that with pop-ups, it's harder to hire staff under those circumstances than for boutique. Perceived value, or a lot of the staff want something, an establishment, and for it can get hard, and sometimes you end up exhausting your friend's boyfriend. So that's hard. Very long days. I remember the farmer's market, the artist market, I keep getting mixed up. The artist market, I was packing up I had to head out the door before 7 o'clock in the morning, and tearing down by around 7. And usually finish tearing down by 8, pack up my car. So that's at least 12 hours, 13 hours. And by the time I got home, it was 9. And I really, it's not for everybody. sometimes those long hours, I can't do it anymore. The other thing is it's weather dependent. If you're outdoors, usually you're not going to get your money back. I remember it was, if it got rained out, it was an act of God. If it started raining or the forecast was the day before, the forecast was thunderstorm and we all voted not to go, then we didn't have to pay. But if the day of we decide we're going to all set up, then we pay for the rent, and there's nothing you can do about it. And quite often, if it rained on a Saturday and maybe overcast the following day, it's hard to make up for the lost sales. But when it's good, it's really good, right? Logistically cumbersome. So sometimes, now I didn't have a tent, but I brought a large umbrella. But once you have a fold-up tent, if they don't provide it, and if they do provide it, it's very expensive, of an outfit. I had to pack up the large beach umbrella. I got a bunch of tables, everything, and I drove a secondhand Civic. And all the things were folded down. I couldn't fit another person in the car because it was packed full. And now the other thing is, for permanent jewelry, you also have to consider power source. Now there you can have argon gas now from Sunstone that is in a tiny canister, batteries from Home Depot or any of those places, but it's a lot more to carry. And what you also want is something small, compact, foldable, and only bring the essentials. The other thing I do is, I used to have earrings, instead of putting them on the rack on the spot, everything was in the rack. I put rubber stoppers, freezer bag, close it in, so that when I get there, first order of business was the table. I throw the tablecloth, unzip the freezer bag, and it's already there. So that if there are people who are very early, and there are always early birds, when you're not set up, that's when the lineup starts. It is cumbersome, so you need to really look into how quickly you can do that, because you have to have tables and tent, umbrella. Okay, another con is possible poor location. A lot of the time, if it's a square, it's okay. But sometimes it's a make or break. People think, okay, at a market, let's be right in front of the food washroom. You got to go to food and washroom. Don't do it. There are a few things. Don't be next to the washroom. Be a few away from the washroom, because people come out of the washroom and there's a lineup or whatnot. They feel awkward. People are looking at them. Somehow we've seen them come out of the washroom or whatever. All right. So they're less likely to look at the stall right next to the washroom, because there's people coming in and out and they're looking at them. Same thing with food, or there's a lineup. Everyone is really, they're hungry need to go pee, and they're standing next to you because the lineup is snaked, and they're not really out there to buy. But now they're blocking people from coming who are really there to buy your service or product. So location is very important. Best location is by the door, first on the right. Now, mind you, I'm right-handed and I always start from the right. But there are people who start from the left. Anyway, by the door. Let me see if I'm going to just go back. Now, the thing is, I remember it was so political, the position, and some people would get really upset. A few mistakes I've made myself is that I'm telling you now because I don't want you to make the same mistakes. And I'm going to talk about how you can move yourself up. Okay, 1, don't thank the organizer in front of other people for getting a good location. I remember I did this because actually I was really appreciative. And I said, Greg, he was my guy. Greg, thank you. I really like. And he just did a dead face. He said, no, and other people were around. He said, no, it's you know what? I'm glad you are doing well. You're positioning, blah, blah, blah. And he was walking away, trying to distance himself. And I realized it's just like, and I was 20 at the time. And I realize now, just like what I tell my kids, you have a bigger piece of apple. Don't say, oh, I like this. This is a bigger piece of chocolate or apple or whatever. Be quiet. No one's around. You can thank the organizer. Hey, I really appreciate that. Actually, don't say, I like being up front because I get more traffic. I like being in that position. And actually, I like my neighbors. I appreciate it. And it's okay. It's okay if the organizer says, no, I have nothing to do with it. I think your things work better over there. But they appreciate you said it, but they can't admit that they've given you a favor. Figure out a way to thank them appropriately later. Another thing is, you want to move up. I remember once somebody was kicked to the back because she was always late. And she was upset. I was crying, being relegated to the very back. But a show organizer, a market, they don't want you to be setting up late. It looks bad on them. They want the people who are early birds willing to set up right at the front. Because by the time the customers are looking, slowly meandering, the laggards will have set up. So as an organizer, they want to put all the good people up front first. So you make yourself indispensable by being there super early, getting set up, and also help out the show organizer. Help out your neighbors to unload the car or something, because every organizer will appreciate that. You make the show look much better by doing all those things. And even if that the organizer doesn't have a wherewithal or hasn't built that kind of relationship with you that you can do the ask, after a couple of times being super early, being very helpful, you can do the ask and say, hey, I really did very well. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I was thinking if there's any sort of availability, can I move to the front? I'll be extra early. I'll get myself set up and then maybe I can help. It'll look good. Or, pose it in a way of how you are helping the show. Okay, so that's my rant. It's really important. Okay. Pop-up market cons is that usually the really good ones, they're infrequent. Like summer festival, Christmas market. The ones that are always every day, every week, people think, I'll come back another time or whatever. So the more infrequent it is, usually do better. More frequent it is, not so much. They don't do as well. The rent might be cheaper. Yes, there we go. Not all markets are the same. You have some really good ones. And then sometimes you have, I remember, a farmer's market, $40 rent, that's great. But you only sell $200, right? And you've spent 6 hours. So not all of them are the same. You have to, and the harder ones, the busy ones are harder to get into. Non-established location one-offs. So these could be, so this isn't in a boutique. There's no venue that is like a salon or whatnot. These don't necessarily happen on every week regularly. So these would include things like a party, house party, engagement party, bridal shower, bat mitzvah, graduation, school fundraiser. And then in some of the cases, I've done one where, I did this for a long time, not just one, but I would do this maybe twice a year, and I raise money for the local hospital. But I'm in the lobby of an office tower, and a portion of my profit went to portion of the sales. So all the profit went to the hospital that saved my mom. So some of the characteristics. It's pretty much mostly new people each and every single time. Word of mouth is how you create the next event. So if it's a party, wedding, usually word of mouth. And by the way, you can have, while I'm talking about that, you can try event planners. So wedding planner, parties, hook yourself up with one of those organizations as a possible service, and then they can, so that helps you with that kind of pop-up. Now, there could be a regular source of business. As far as so for parties, now you can do $1 per person. The thing with the parties is that it's a lot harder if it is not covered by the host, because a lot of people go to these parties for food for the company, and they are not expecting to spend in the private party. Okay, so the pros of this: there's guaranteed attendance. So bat mitzvah, the weddings, engagements, you're not having to bring the people. They're already going to be there. You can pre-negotiate a profit so that you make sure you don't lose money. A lot of the time for example, bat mitzvahs, a customer who does a lot of these, it's covered, and she knows her time, and you can make sure that for the 2 hours that you're there, you're doing 80 bracelets, you make sure that you are earning $2,000 profit. All of that can be negotiated. There's no advertising cost, obviously, other than for you to advertise to those people selecting events. So again, the event planner, making sure that you're handing out cards at the venue, because everyone is always scouting for their own venue, or their friends or relatives, or have the same thing coming up. Okay. And the other thing is, this you can absolutely do, and it will help your boutique traffic. So just like, for example, as an analogy, you can have a flower shop, and be doing these events, and that boosts your boutique traffic. Same thing with if you're a restaurant, you can do catering at these places and it brings traffic. So this is very, very helpful, even if you have a boutique or you have, say, you do pop-ups at markets on a regular basis. This certainly helps. Most of the people who are at these events, and if, for example, where I was in the lobby, I was doing 2 days back to back. A lot of the time, even if they're not expecting to spend, they know I'm going to be back there and I'm there for a short period of time, they're willing to spend the money because I'm not going to be back. This is great for flexible lifestyle. Now, caveat to say this is that oftentimes people are less likely to recommend your service to someone else if you could possibly be a no-show or whatnot. So it's flexible lifestyle to a certain extent. You have to be very, very committed in order to build this kind of business. Non-established location cons. Okay. New challenges each time. New location, the parties you have to figure out. You're meeting new people. Logistics and social. If you have a great deal of social anxiety, and I'd like to talk about this another time, you have to be able to manage that because there are a lot, or anxiety, period, because there's so many variables and it's new every single time. More so than, say, an established pop-up, established location, or a weekend, a regular market. Income stream is a lot less regular or assured than the other two types of pop-up or having a boutique, as you can imagine, because you only earn as much as you can go and hustle. This is a con. People might not be prepared to spend at parties and whatnot. So you have to negotiate. If you're going to a private event, negotiate beforehand a profit. Number per head is the best way. If it is the case that you're in, say, a lobby, school, or some other venue, it would be good so in my case, I'd ask them for the lobby, to put it up in the elevator announcement the day before, the day of, and I try to do 2 days back to back. So even if the person forgot or isn't reading whatever's in the elevator or postings, or the management forgot to do that, they're walking by, they see me, they have no money, or they're busy, I will remind them they'll likely bring money the next time. So they're not always ready to spend, but you need to work around that. It's hit and miss if it's not covered by the house. You're taking a lot more risk. Okay, some creative ideas for non-traditional pop-ups. And this is true. A friend of mine actually went on a cruise ship. Now, mind you, it wasn't permanent bracelet, but it was, she had a bead store. And one of the services that the cruise ship decided they want, instead of painting crafts or whatnot, they could make their own little bracelets, beads. And it was covered, the materials, etc. And they had food, they had free cruise. It was great. It was only for a couple of hours, maybe a couple hours in the morning, a couple hours in the afternoon. So I'm thinking, if you can approach some cruise ships, even if you don't have a charm it'd be great if you can make a charm that represents a cruise ship, but have something so that everyone wants everyone wants a souvenir that they can take home. Even better. You can. The only downside is you have to like cruises and not have seasickness, but that would be very lucrative. And we buy all sorts of stuff from cruise while we're on cruise ships, so I know all about that. Okay, traveling rodeo amusement park. Yes, you can join the circus in a way, but instead of traveling with them throughout the state, you could do several counties. You can stay there, and if you know that there are other venues that come to you through your area, book it up. Be the first to get it, right? And offer to give them a cut. They would love to have. No, make sure you negotiate that. Okay, I'll give you a good cut, and don't have anyone else in. Now, you've just cut off the competition. You can be there for all of these, and you're assured, because when people go to these traveling amusement parks, things that the circus or whatever that comes to town, they're ready to spend aside from the cotton candy. It's great. Like I was saying, office tower, the lobby, you should just approach. And one of the things is, what I did was, and you could do that, I opted to all the profit. You could do 10% or 15% of sales going to charity of their choice or charity of your choice, or if there's a local school next to that building, or a charity, that a tenant, a nonprofit tenant in that building, that could go towards them. It's great PR for the lobby. It adds, if you have a sign that says it's for charity, it's great. And the tenants who are there, the workers that come to the office tower, they're appreciative. It's a great place to hang out, something different for lunchtime. Yes, bridal showers. Bridal showers are great, bat mitzvahs, anything for celebration. Okay. Focusing on building growth. For your pop-ups, in this case, you should always have QR code. Either QR code for your social media, so they can post and tag right now the process of being welded, etc. QR code could be for your website or your menu of services, so that they can come and order something for themselves, book something for their private event. Every single interaction that you have with any one of them, always have it in mind, the goal in mind, that you are going to build your business. Aside from the sale right there and then, aside from the social media potential that you have with more fodder, filming it, etc., you should always have back of your mind, this is how you are going to build. Social media kit with a lot of images. We no longer really just print business cards, resumes, or more pictures than anything else, images. You should have all of that, a really good portfolio, so that when you're actually approaching other people, or they're from word of mouth, they want to see what this person does, whatnot, nothing speaks louder than images. Web pages are good, not necessary if you can't do it. But now with a lot of software out there like Wix or whatnot, it's very easy to have your own web page. It just means that it's one level up, that you mean business. This is really important. Having a menu of services and offerings. People don't want to they don't want, a lot of times they're too embarrassed to ask. And if you're offering discounts for 30 to 40 people, and then for big venues, 80 plus people, etc., have that stated. You could have menu of, say 80 people, 4 choices of chains and whatnot. Having all that, it makes decision making a lot easier. You have less analysis paralysis. Right? A lot of times they're not, if they're doing a wedding, there's so many different aspects. They want to know, okay, boom, $4,000 is how much that I have for 100 people. And that could be, it's done. And you have different menus for different budgets and sizes. So menu of offerings makes life a lot easier for them and for you. You should always have planning an event. Contact me if you're interested in having Permanent Jewellery make it special or something like that. If they didn't think of it, you put the seed in their head so that they'll remember you. And so when that comes up, should always plant the thought in everyone's mind to buy from you. And so there is the end of that presentation. Now, circling back about negotiating rent. I had someone during the PJX show say, I never pay rent. I mean, I'm bringing them business already. And I mean, I've done free bracelet, given that. Okay, and my response to that was, you live in a really nice place, lady. That is great. I mean, I live in Toronto and people are great here, but I don't think, I would never, if they're willing to have me there, because I promised that I'm going to drive lots of business and make it fun for them, and I'll give them a bracelet each. Yeah, maybe they'll have me there. But as soon as they see that I'm really busy and all they got out of it was a bracelet, one of two things could happen. Three. One sure thing is that they would be a little bit miffed, like, she just earned a couple of $1,000 and I got a bracelet. Then two things would happen. One, either they're going to look around and negotiate for the next person who's going to be willing to profit share, and they'll invite that person back. Or two, they would want to get their own welder. Either way, they're not going to invite you back. It's always really, really important to understand that there's enough food on the table for everybody. And you need to make sure that everyone is taken care of. Otherwise, it's not going to be an equal partnership. So it's not going to last long. Okay? And it's like this. Do you tip when you're dining out? You don't have to. No law says you have to. But if you don't, well, they'll invite you back for dining, but the waitress isn't going to be all that happy, right? So it's another way of sharing. And when you are generous, they're generous back to you, give you better service, invite you back more often. That's what it comes down to. And and I teach my girls this. I have 3 daughters. I teach my girls this. Always leave something on the table for the rest of us, for the rest of the people. And you need to decide, is this a one-time thing, or are you looking for long-term partnership? And even if you're thinking, no, this is a one-time deal, I'm not gonna back here or whatever. You just don't know what could possibly happen. So always treat it as though it's going to be a long-term partnership relationship. And how would you build that? Are you going to profit share and share generously or not? So that's why I'm going to leave off on that part. Someone else had asked, okay, if it is profit share, can I cap it so that I'm not paying huge amount of rent? So can I say, 50-50 up to a certain amount and that's it? And I gotta say a few things. Anyone who's gone into business, they're not there really for charity. Hate to say it, people are greedy. Would they like it if you cap it? If anything, likelihood a business owner would negotiate that, okay, we can do 50-50. If you get this much, I want more. In fact, they'll negotiate for more, bigger cut. So I think to reverse that, you see that in the real estate market. The brokers, usually if you look at the agents, a house that is 1.5 million and under, it's 5% commission, 2.5% for the seller, 2.5% of the selling agent, the 2.5% for the representative of the buyer, and then thereafter it ratchets up another quarter, and then after a certain amount, because they think, well, you're willing to price at this, you're okay to sell it at 1.5, but if I can get it and sell it for 3 mil, like that's bonus. So usually you'll see in the fine print, once it goes higher, it's now 6% instead of 5%, and so on. So what you need, and you want them to be motivated to do all that, and you want the boutique owner to be motivated to call, dial, do all those things to bring in the traffic. But what you could do is to say, it cost me a lot of money for the machine and to come out here and the materials. Can we do this? Because I need to cover the machine cost. Can we do 60-40 up until $2,000? So 60% for me, 40% for you. I pay for all the goods and so on, and it pays for the machine. And then thereafter, we can do 50-50 because I would have covered at least some part of my day for the gas and the machine. So you can start that and still motivate the people to bring in lots of people, because once you have more, they get more. So, okay. If you've watched to the end of this, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I love sharing my knowledge. And sometimes I feel that when I'm sharing it and looking back on my own experiences, I'm learning a lot and processing in a different way with more maturity now than 30 years ago. And I'm really willing to share things that I have learned, because I've been lucky enough to have been mentored by people, by my mentors, and I'm very grateful. Please, if you enjoyed this, share with other people. Let me know, because filming in the vacuum is kind of boring. I hope this has been worth your while. And feel free to let me know what else you would like to learn. I love to hear feedback. And I bet you other people read the comments. And I'm going to try to respond to all comments. And And if there's some part that I've missed here, then I can at least add to it and other people can read, get a little bit more information. And in case you don't know me, I'm Dana. I'm the founder of Stones and Findings. We are wholesalers of premium quality chains, findings that I've used for my welding, as well as we're one of the top suppliers of raw components in the permanent jewelry business, the industry. I'm going to leave some more information about the company as well as some of the notes here so that you can look it up. And on our website, there are free resources so that you don't have to retype things like product knowledge, different metals, how to clean jewelry, etc. All of that could be, you feel free, copy and put on your website. As well, I have many more videos, and I hope you will subscribe to my channel.